everybody. Joleen London!
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel for this very special Sunday afternoon live with my bestie, Busy Blue. Busy Blue, how you doing?
I was asking if I should put on like a Christmas hat or something.
Oh,
It's Christmassy.
Put on a Christmas hat. We're gonna talk about the Royals. I'm gonna turn my tree on. I'm just hitting my little floor. All right, my tree is on. Okay, Busy's putting on a hat. Oh my God, that's so cute. Is it a sock monkey?
It is.
Oh, that's adorable. All right, you guys, as you are joining in, make sure you smash that like. We are going to be talking today, this afternoon, about the Harry and Meghan Netflix docu-series that has everybody up in arms. Everybody has their own opinion. And we're just going to preface it like this. Me and Busy, everything we say is based on our opinions on it. You are welcome to have your own opinion. I know that this topic gets people very riled up, and people are very passionate about it. So feel free to put your passion in the chat. Just try to be respectful of one another and how they feel. And yeah, let's just be cool. Be cool. Don't be all uncool. Like Luann de Lesseps from the Real Housewives of New York says, me and Busy are by no means royal experts. Are you busy? I don't know. I don't want to speak for you.
Exactly. You have no idea what my credentials are, but you are correct.
I am someone who I enjoy following the news of the royals. Am I privy to like being a historian of this? No. And people watching in the UK, you might say, here's some of the things me and Busy say and think, ugh, Americans, you don't understand the monarchy. And for that, we remind you this is mere entertainment purpose only.
And we're also grateful and thankful because they took a lot of stuff from my people. So if we don't understand everything, that's kind of great.
Just like Busy said. Okay. So let's have some fun. Let's talk about this. Let's have healthy debate about it. And let's, hop into it. Make sure you smash that like I said, would love to see our like goal. Let's set for 500 likes. Let's get that 500 likes. If you're not already subscribed to Busy Blue, make sure you sub. I tagged him in the title. You can open a new tab and just hit Busy Blue and then subscribe. You can also subscribe. Me and Busy have a separate channel together called Sip and Key. And if one of my mods would drop that, you can subscribe to that too, where we cover a plethora of crazy things happening on the internet and the YouTube streets. You can support by sending a super chat like Maintenance Chick did. Thank you so much. Or a super sticker while we're live. Right? Or you can hit up Cash App, Venmo, follow us on social media. All the YouTube stuff out of the way. Busy Blue. Okay.
This is why you're so good at the YouTube stuff, because I would never have done any of that.
Yes, you would. You're such a professional YouTuber.
Child, I would have been like, hey guys, I'm just waiting for the room to load.
I love those YouTubers. Waiting for the room to load. You gotta wait for the room to load. It's almost full. Yes, put your bees in the chat for Busy. Mims, shout out to our friends. Make it make sense. I invited Mims, but he's busy. But he said he will share our link, which I thought was really kind.
That was really nice. You didn't tell me you was inviting other people. I thought this was like a special me and you thing.
It is, but I invited you first, if that makes any difference.
It's no consolation. Thanks.
Well, I saw Mims post something about maybe covering something Meghan Markle. So I'm like, oh, I bet Mims would have good opinions on this too. Because what I love about me and Busy is oftentimes we don't always, we hardly agree on our entertainment stuff.
Yeah. I will say I love Meghan Markle. Like from the depths of my soul, I do appreciate her. I love her. If I ever got a chance to meet her, I would die. I think like she's amazing.
So let me get your first thoughts then, coming off that, of this docuseries. How much were you privy to on what happened compared to watching this? Like, what are your overall thoughts after watching this docuseries on Netflix?
So the first 3 episodes were fantastic. I didn't know a lot of their love story, and how they got a chance to be who they are. I didn't know anything about Meghan Markle's history and how much of a humanitarian or a feminist she was from like a young age. I didn't know about her relationship with her dad. Um, because of how I saw things play out when we got to present day. So I would never have thought that she was like with him so frequently and like was with him every week. Um, for the second part, it was a lot of stuff that we already knew and they already covered before. They've talked about before. We kind of already knew these things. Um, so the last three parts were, to be honest, irrelevant to me. I
Oh,
felt like we
wow.
already knew those things.
Mhm.
We already seen those things. We saw those things play out. As a person of color and as a fan of hers, I like the truth that they spoke into everything. I mean, I kind of already figured like the way that they were being portrayed and things that were happening. The second part really didn't open up my eyes to anything except how much Harry really truly pushed for the Megxit.
Mhm.
I thought it was like more of a joint decision, and they talked about it and decided. I didn't know that it was more so. Spoiler alert! That Harry was like, "I'm not doing this no more. Like, I'm not. I can't. Not for my wife, for my children. Not doing it." And that was a little bit more of a surprise to me. But the Tyler Perry, Oprah, everything, all of that, I already knew.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you. I think but I did. I found the first couple episodes. Obviously, this is a docu-series. This is Hollywood produced, so we're getting, the music, they're pulling all your feels out, with
Mhm.
what footage is used. So, if you haven't seen the documentary or docu-series yet, it's on Netflix. There are 6 total episodes, I believe. And it's basically Meghan and Harry for the first time, according to them, telling their story. And we don't always see the royals this intimately. But then again, we do, because in the past, we saw Diana go to the press like this on multiple
My
occasions
mother
when she
loved
featured.
Princess Diana.
It's that generation, like I did too. I mean, I remember where I was. I mean, it's one of those moments, people say, you remember where you were when like Kennedy was assassinated. I remember where I was when I found out Princess Diana had died. I was at my boyfriend's best friend's house. We were all hanging out. I was 17 years old and I was glued to the TV. They were like teenage dudes, so they were kind of like, okay, cool, not cool, but you know what I mean? They didn't really, they really couldn't care less at that point. But I was just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, my heart was broken because, she was the people's princess. Diana has long, she transcended royalty. She transcended her country. She was to everyone. She was that woman that like bent down and went to the hospitals and touched AIDS patients at a time when people were so stigmatized about different, diseases, and AIDS being one of them. And she was just she gave a humanity, I think, to the monarchy that they had long needed, and that has been showcased in many documentaries and also The Crown.
Yeah.
Um, and Diana was really a woman who, not that I knew her, but what we know of her being the people's princess, even though we're not British, she really she had her heart on her sleeve, and she was this, 19-year-old, 18-year-old girl that was sought out by the prince after he briefly dated her sister years before and saw her like as a
I
teenager
didn't
at
know
the
any
house.
of that.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing with the monarchy and with the crown, and we're kind of, going to skip around and have some fun talking about this stuff, but um they really do, who you marry becomes part of the institution. So it is they're invested in who you marry, and what the crown and the institution, as they call it, or the firm, what I think they failed at for many years is realizing that if you represent the people, and if it is all based on um public image and opinions and popularity, wouldn't you want your royals to actually be in love with their partners? And I think that's something they failed so much through the years. I mean, the reason basically that Queen Elizabeth, I mean, one of the reasons that she became Queen Elizabeth is that her father's brother wasn't able to complete his calling, or as the king, because he too fell in love with someone that the monarchy did not approve of. Because if you were a divorced woman, if you were, there were all kinds of things. If they didn't approve of you, you weren't going to be accepted into the monarchy. So then Queen Elizabeth's dad had to become king, and he was never, that it wasn't really supposed to be in the cards. I mean, obviously there's a succession.
Yeah.
So, and then you have this trickling down to Prince Charles himself, who was not able to be with Camilla, who he really loved, and instead was, kind of paired up with Diana. And despite going to his mom and his dad and his family and saying, I love this woman, well, at the time she was married, and that would have made her a divorcee, but they had long been, and Camilla, is related to like one of his grandparents, like royals.
So they're
Not
cousins?
no. She's related to a mistress of another. So it's like a line of mistresses as well. So it's very interesting. And then Queen Elizabeth's sister also was not able. She was not able to marry who she loved, and she forever felt it's we'll talk about it throughout our discussion, but there's so many cycles, like everything's cyclical, everything's a pattern of now what's happening between Harry and William as
Yes,
brothers.
it seems like that's happened before several times.
Yes, the
Yeah.
same divide happened at times with Queen Elizabeth and her sister, because what is with the monarchy and with the crown always comes first. So my original point is, I wish they would modernize in the fact that if these people are able to love who they love and be with who they're able to, want to be with truly, I think a lot of this like decades old, hundreds of years old heartbreak that they keep carrying, and this pattern and this cycle that keeps happening, they could stop it, and that's kind of what we see here a little bit with, obviously a lot of it with Meghan and Harry. So I liked the first couple episodes. Obviously, I'm in. I didn't know all the backstory. Thank you, Mims. Yes, I invited Busy first. I'm so sorry.
The best thing she could have done. The best thing.
So, to see that the courtship, I thought it was very sweet. Obviously, it was, and they were able to keep it their own, like Meghan
Yes,
said.
I loved every part of that.
Right. And they dated long distance. And Prince Harry, I remember when Prince William first came out. I mean, Prince William's the same age as me. So when he first stepped on the scene as like Prince William, you're like, damn, Prince William is cute. But then it didn't last long. Prince Harry stepped up to the challenge.
God, I love his Prince Harry. He's so fine to me. That redhead is so fine to me. I love me some Prince Harry. Prince William looked like he'd been through it. He had been beat up a couple times.
Yeah, he got the Charles treatment, I think. And what I noticed in this documentary is they're both their mother's sons. William, it's been talked about a lot that he was quite a confidant to Diana. Like, she really looked, when she was struggling and things, to her oldest son, now Prince William, one day to be King William. She really utilized their relationship and maybe told him more. Will
he become king? I thought his son becomes king before he does.
No, it'll be Charles, and then after Charles, it'll be William, and then after William, be William's first son.
Okay.
So that's they're both. This documentary was sad in the fact that I think there's a lot of Diana in both of them, but I think the institution or the crown will kind of beat that out of you, for lack of a better word, because you cease becoming an individual and you start becoming an institution. And so Harry had, when he was going through his teen years, as we saw, he struggled, like teens do, but he struggled in the public. He had that really bad moment where he dressed up in the Nazi uniform for a Halloween party. But I think this does show the arc of like a redemption, and how you can go from being so blind to these kind of things, and you can be looking so much through your privilege that you don't realize who you're hurting, and then all of a sudden you can grow into a man who now is not only realizing it but standing up for that. In the name of the woman he loved.
It felt like he was actively doing things to go against the crown and the public.
Yes.
And I think a lot of that shows up in who he is now still. I think when he was young, because I had no idea he went to that boarding school I had no idea
Mhm.
any of the like tabloid information. I felt like he was actively like, I don't care, and I'm not doing any of this. Y'all kill my mom, and I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, however I want to do it. So even him dressing up, like as horrible as it sounds, it was so easy for me to forgive the things that were published or talked about him, because I felt like he did it purposely to shun or create chaos for the family.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, Busy, because what we're also forgetting, and maybe not forgetting, but what maybe people overlook is that, everyone lost Diana, the people's princess, but these two men and were very young boys lost their mom.
Your
So
mother,
that
yeah.
kind of early childhood trauma is going to follow you, and there will be some kind of act outs. And I think we saw that. And also Harry probably trying to find his place, because what we saw from documentaries, the way Charles is treated is very different from his brothers and sisters, because Charles is going to be held as they're going up to this higher standard because he's going to be the future king, because him being the firstborn. And so we probably see that with, or William and Harry probably experienced that too. So not only the loss of their mother, but now, their grandmother stepped in and helped raise them. And then their dad, obviously Prince Charles, but they're really being raised by this institution. And if, from what we learned in this documentary, mental health isn't at the forefront, and probably not in the 90s for sure, how much mental health was given to these young boys after such a tragic loss, and then they had to chin up, go out and touch other people who are crying and console the world, but who's consoling them?
True, yeah. And can you imagine being Harry, knowing that, if we were siblings and you were born first, and it's like, okay, well, Jolene's gonna be the queen, so if it all else fails and she has her kids or whatever, then you probably would be the king. I'm like, well, then I'm doing what the fuck I want to do. Like, I have no true place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to act a fool. I'm about to really
Right.
act a fool. And I think what's weird, or what was interesting, I had no idea he was in the military.
Oh yeah, and he was the only one,
Have they done
um,
it? So they haven't done it before. Because
um,
fighting for your country, I would assume, as a royal, is you doing your public engagements.
well, Prince Philip was in the Navy, I believe. So that's Elizabeth's husband who
Okay.
passed. But Charles, no. Um, William, was he? I don't think so. I think it was just Harry who actually served, you know.
Oh.
And then Harry, we see that Harry went to Africa, and he developed some great friendships and bonds, and he did his own kind of work there, because it's a lot of charitable work they do, and a lot of kind of like figurehead work that
Mhm.
they do for the crown. So yeah, that was interesting to see. He did what, 2 tours in Afghanistan, I think they said.
Yeah.
So that was crazy in itself. But what you mentioned about the two of them is Harry and William, just thinking from, a sibling background. We saw the same thing with Margaret and Elizabeth. And that was talked about in documentaries, and also in The Crown, which is a fictionalized version of, what happens in the monarchy, but a great television show. BTW, love it. But we saw that with Margaret and Elizabeth. And I think, here's my take. I think Margaret, out of Elizabeth, had the charisma. And obviously she was free to have that charisma,
Yeah.
because Elizabeth had to be very buttoned up. She had to take this role as a very young woman, and she had to give up her life and give her life to service of the crown. Where Margaret was able to a little bit free herself. She was a little bit, funnier, a little partier, but she was also very likable, much like Harry. And I see that same thing with William being a little more like Elizabeth. So there could be, a competition vibe there. But there's also the aspect of, well, if this family, a lot of it's based on popularity, because here's the deal. The public funds this in the UK. Feel free to correct us if we're wrong on any of our royal knowledge, but they're at service to the British public.
Mhm.
Okay. So the British public then feels like they should be allowed information and a window into their lives. And a lot of it is based on popularity, because without the people approving of them, the monarchy could disappear.
Right.
It could easily, the people could go, we're done with this shit. So they're constantly fighting for good press. They're fighting for popularity. And Prince Harry became very popular. Well, what do you think is going to happen in an institution where Harry's not even third in line for the crown after William? Well, if he's more popular than Prince William, they might have to knock Harry down a couple pegs, because without the popularity, the monarchy dies.
I
Because
didn't know that. So I will say I didn't know that. I felt like this was such an ingrained part of the UK and their subsidiary commonwealths.
Mhm.
I truly thought that it was like, this is an establishment that is not going anywhere, and you can like us or hate us, but we're here to stay. I had no idea that the popularity came into play. So that the documentary did showcase the fact that popularity plays a role. That this is a high school reunion. Okay, this is prom king, prom queen all over again. And that's very fickle. Like it's so
Mhm.
it has to be so hard to keep up with that.
Yeah, and I think that's something, Queen Elizabeth being the longest reigning monarch, I think that's something that she battled with, is this popularity thing through the years, and people, should she step down? Is it too long? Are they modernizing themselves enough? Are they likable? Because they're on such shaky ground. Because at any moment this could all go away, because really it's quite antiquated, the system.
Yeah.
Chickhead, thank you so much. Give it for the super chat. Says no, she died past. They brought back his nanny and kept them out of the light for years. They worked hard on both the boys. So they're saying thank you for that. And then people in the chat are saying yes, the British public does fund them. Lord Karma says we do fund them. So that was, that's interesting about this documentary, is that there is a sense of, I understand that to a point, and I wish we held our politicians a little more to this. Like, if we're paying your salaries and stuff, you know what I mean? If you're like getting, and you're getting lifelong, or even our police and all this stuff, if you're getting lifelong insurance and things, once you become a citizen, you get it for like the rest of your life, right? You
Yeah.
get insured and all that.
Mhm.
I wish that we could be a little more privy to what they were doing. Maybe not behind the scenes, but even what's going on.
Well, we are. It's how much the public wants to engage in that. Like you
That's true.
you can find everything in America.
Yeah,
Most things
right.
are privy to the public. It's just, do you want
How
yeah
how willing are you to go out and
are you
that
trying to take it,
information
because
out?
everything is public knowledge,
Except
like
for,
court hearings and everything, everything you can see everything. It's
where can we find where our tax dollars, when they say this
that
percent goes
part
to
is a
military?
no. That
Well,
part's a no.
what part of the military? That's why I'd like a little breakdown of what actually taxes, because they have the breakdowns of the social programs, and that's why we always in the US we're always like, it's welfare. We're just, and it's like, well, what about the corporate welfare? And then what about this big military budget? I mean, I'm all for supporting our military, but what are we actually giving them? What is this money going to? So I would like to be a little more privy to
I
that
remember
spending.
being a child and asking, well, not a child, but I guess I was like a preteen. But I remember asking in social studies, like, can't pick where our money goes?
Yeah.
And being so reprimanded by Mr. Dan, and like, no, you can't, and that's not important. This and that. He was a white teacher in a black school. And I was like, I just feel like that's kind of weird that we have to pay these taxes and we can't select like where our money goes. Well, you have to know what America's like and this and that. But I remember that's still a frustration to me today, about selecting where taxes go. But as the American government, we have one of the best militaries and systems. So I gotta shut up, because, and I mean, 9/11 was horrific. But before that, you got to think about other countries who have wars on their land, and things are happening and bombs are exploding and stuff happening regularly or daily on their land. And in America, we never experienced that ever. Like, no, I don't have to wake up in the morning trying to go to school and there's bombs being blown and I'm trying to rush to school. So as much as it's a frustration that, you know, we give so much money to the military, thinking about the news and the things that we even see on the news, some places are like being bombed regularly and kids are waking up and parents are waking up walking through the streets that are like dismantled by other countries or communities, or they're in the midst of war and children have to figure out ways to like find their home or go to school. And in America, we don't, like, we literally don't have to do that. And outside of 9/11, we haven't had to do that for a long time. So as much as I have a gripe with it, I also respect the fact that, I mean, the money that you're giving keeps us protected from a lot of those harms.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that too, but I also wish there was more transparency regarding our military budget. I mean, as me and Busy are talking about this as Americans, we definitely realize that there are America, we have a lot of issues on our own land, but this is just us talking about the royals. So I know some people in the chat are like, "Oh, it's kind of one-sided." Yes, it's definitely be one-sided because we're
For
Americans watching this. So yes, it's just our perspective. It's not. This isn't, you know, the God's truth, if you will. So coming back to these two, we see their love story, we see them get engaged, and it looks as though Meghan Markle is going to make this imprint on the monarchy and on the British Commonwealth and represent a large population of people when there's so many people of color who haven't seen themselves represented in the monarchy. So it looks like a true path to progress. And it's beautiful. And those were the moments that I loved seeing when you see, you know, young Black girls and little Black boys, and they see Meghan Markle. And it's like, wow, I've never seen myself represented in this thing that's so important to our countries. And there's Meghan. And we know from however much you knew about Meghan before, but also from this documentary, that she is a woman and was a young girl who is very passionate about things. And I myself can relate to this because I was a young girl who was very passionate. I don't know if I was passionate about the as important things as Meghan Markle was. I was passionate about writing letters to NBC when they wouldn't put Saved by the Bell on at the right time on Saturday.
Really?
Yes, my mom kept all my letters. I was a little Karen, I think. And they put on some wrestling thing and I wrote a letter. I'll have to read it one time on air, too busy. I was also passionate when they canceled My So-Called Life on ABC. I wrote a letter after one season because Claire Danes' role as Angela Chase forever changed my life and made me dye my hair red. But I also was I think I was always just a little feminist. I was always very outspoken. I was always a little justice chick. It's the Aquarius in me. So I saw that in Meghan Markle, and it was great to see her young and expressing herself and all of these things, because we look at these people as adults and we forget they were kids. We forget that Harry and William, they went through a lot of tragedy. We forget Charles went through tragedy. Charles, you know, Prince
He looks
Charles,
like it.
he did. He does. Charles did suffer too under this. Elizabeth suffered under this. So I can have empathy for all the royals who did suffer under this institution because it is so rigid. But they've said along for forever that it has to be, otherwise it'll crumble because it is so fragile. But yet, what Busy said, you would think no one could take the monarchy down, the British monarchy, but as you can see, you can. So to see that Meghan Markle then was going to become, or did become the Duchess of Sussex, and then she can do all this charitable work that she was already involved with before.
Right.
She was, but they dumbed her down, the British media, and American media, some as well, to just some dumb Hollywood bimbo actress. The misogyny was real in the labels they put on Meghan. And then the racism with Compton and gangster and all this stuff that had no relevance to her life or to her family.
I've never even been. I'm not from Compton. What's the problem with Compton? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever seen Suits? I never watched Suits ever.
I never did either. I don't really watch things on USA Network unless I used to watch.
Yikes.
Oh, you're probably too young. It was on USA, I think. There was Dance Party USA when I'd come home from school as a kid. They had this show where all the kids were like dancing and doing like the Running Man and the Roger Rabbit and the Kid and Play. Okay.
No.
That's probably the last show I watched on USA Network. So I never saw Suits, but apparently it had like a bunch of seasons.
Yeah, like almost like 5'6".
Right? So we didn't know Meghan Markle was not a household actress name. She was doing a show, living up in Canada. Shout out to our friends in Canada. We love our Canadians. I'm part Canadian. I always say that, Minnesotan. We're basically Canadian,
Okay.
but she wasn't like a big Hollywood movie star. She was doing well for herself.
Yeah.
But I mean, but they made it. I liked this documentary or docu-series because they made it seem in the press like she was hungry to be a royal. Like she would do anything. Like
Oh my God, Joleen.
yes.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And I had to go back and recurate a lot of my content. Finding a royal on Instagram. Like someone's like, oh my God. I post a picture and they're like, oh my God, who's that girl with you?
I know.
I'm like, oh, this is my friend Joleen. Like, oh my God, I gotta meet her.
That's what Harry and Meghan said how they met. Is Meghan, through a mutual friend, was hanging out. She had been single. She's like, I'm gonna have a hot girl summer. I'm gonna do it up. And instead, Harry peeped on Instagram and saw Meghan and hit the friend up, like Busy said, and like, who dat? And
Can you
like,
imagine? Let me look at my Instagram right now and see if well, it's so many pictures of me and Tay.
That is like a fairy tale.
Oh my God. Y'all put your Instagrams in the chat. Are y'all Instagrams ready for Royal to come and hit y'all up? Do y'all have Instagrams that are ready for the Royals? If someone from like a famous family was looking through Instagram, would y'all Instagrams show it? I got Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, me and Tay. Yeah, I don't
would
think
not
I
be
would.
ready. I don't think a royal. The only people that hit me up is want to buy followers. You get those like in your request, or would you like?
We want you to wear our jewelry.
Yeah, but my name is Sue, and I have no avatar, and I have no followers. You have to hit up this place, and I'm like, if you really wanted me, you would send.
I would
You would send the real
never
company.
make it. Looking at this, I would never be rich and famous.
Right? So that's how they were introduced to each other, which started this love affair. And I think,
gag. Do you think she really
right?
didn't? Like she's from Canada, like that's part of the parliament.
Well, she's
Think
from
that?
LA, but she lived in Canada.
Sorry, she was living in Canada. Do you think she doesn't know? That part to me, I was like, sis.
She knew
She was
about
like, well, I just looked at his Instagram and I saw these amazing photos. Girl, you know who the hell Harry is.
How old is? Yeah, Meghan's a little younger than me. We all knew Prince Harry and Prince William. Now,
She's older than me, and I know who Harry is. Girl, I remember he was partying in Vegas, and it was getting wild. And my mom was like, "Oh my God, the princess!" Because my mom loves Diana, so she like really fell in love with the kids. More so Harry, not Prince Charles. William. But see, I don't even know that boy's name or raggedy ass.
So maybe she didn't know that much either. I mean, I'm sure, but they made it seem like that she was watching. They have one picture of her, I think, in high school going to London, taking a picture in front of Kensington Palace. It's like, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't take a picture in front of the palace when you go to London? That's historic. It's beautiful. Like, obviously, that'd be the first thing I would do, Now, Busy, what did you think? There was some interesting facts dropped during this that I didn't know, because again, we struggle with American history in America. They barely teach us what really happened in America. To be honest, they don't even teach us. So American history, we love to whitewash it. We love to hide, all the bad stuff that this country was founded on. But Robert White saying, when we find that the Brits subsidized slaveholders, white people, for the end of slavery until recent years. I mean, that was like, wow, because you hear so much about obviously we're in the US, so you hear so much about the US and that, but to know that they were subsidizing these people until recent years.
We knew that.
I didn't know that. I'll be honest with you. I was very ignorant around the UK and its involvement to present day. Slaveholders. I was very ignorant to that. And that's probably, again, like you said, the information's out there if you seek it out, but I never sought it out.
Yeah, the girls are thieves. And to today, they stealing and getting money from and getting power from communities and girl, still to today.
Right. And that's where I check myself. And I know that there's always more growth and more learning to be had. And we're never done learning. We're never done growing because there's so much stuff that
Sure.
either my privilege or that I just didn't require to, you know what I mean? I didn't ever push myself to learn, wasn't taught to me. Maybe I didn't pay attention. So those are the things where I'm like, damn, I need to keep investing in my knowledge and education and not be willfully ignorant to these kind of things because
I
that
love
has
that in
floored me.
episode 5 where they opened up about all of the misfortunes or the mistreatment, the stealing, the racism that was happening, and how Megan could have been a vessel for
Yes.
communities,
Yes.
and even with that, the monarch or the institution decided like it's just we're against it. You have to be some type of, and I wonder, and you know what frustrates me? This is like on a tangent. I really liked Kate Middleton.
Yeah.
And I liked her, not because she was a part of the royal family, but it just seemed like a regular woman is like making it. And her fashion style, her sense, and her brain. I just loved her. And they didn't touch on her too much throughout this documentary, except for episode 4 when they talked about like the grudge or whatever fake beef between Megan and Kate. Because I see someone like that, it made it very hard for me to rationalize around this family is racist as fuck. Like it just is. And to know that you have now a biracial woman where people
Mhm.
can see, and they kept showing clips of people like, oh my god, we got a black prince, we got a black princess, we got a la, la, la. Still now you have control over these 2.8 billion. I think that was the number. 2.8 billion people of color. And now you have this biracial woman who can now relate to these people. And you would rather keep the institution all white than to let anyone of color feel like they can have a space. It's just weird to me and it's frustrating. And a lot of it, I mean, I'm no Harry like that. But I look at Kate Middleton like that dress was ugly now. Like everything you did was ugly. Because this is what you like, this is what, and I know she's birthed kings, future kings,
Yes, she
but
has.
you're trash. Like you're trash to me. For you to allow, I thought she was more
Mhm.
than what she is. And she never spoke up, she never spoke out. And I know in the family that I'm marrying into, hopefully,
Mhm.
they appreciate
Hopefully.
me. Hopefully, they
You're engaged.
appreciate me though for my candor and being able to speak up and say, like, oh, yeah, y'all be treating the in-laws like this. I remember one of the well, I'll say one, two of the in-laws came to me and was like, oh my god, you finally said it was during our Thanksgiving. No, it was during our proposal. It was like you finally said what we've been wanting to say because their family's a lot, da da da. All good things, but they've been feeling like they were drowned also in the family, like me. And I was
Mhm.
like, we love y'all, but we also need a little bit of space to make decisions and whatever. But they make decisions as a family. When one person wants something, the whole family comes in, and then the decision is made. If I wanted to paint this room red, the whole family will come in and be like, I don't know. Tavon said that, and then I would lose. And it's like, can we just get a little space? And the whole family comes in. So the in-laws were like, I'm so glad you spoke up. And now we got each other's back. I would have thought that Kate Middleton would have had some sort of backing of, especially knowing the parents that they have. She would have had her back. But then I'm thinking about it. She a white woman who doesn't have to go through these things. And what's the issue? So I'm gonna shut up.
Well, here's the issue, is that what Harry touched on in this documentary is that women in this family who marry into it often are silent. So I think the beef that was fabricated, that was created between Meghan and Kate, that's truly a part of the patriarchy and truly a part of misogyny at its finest, because I think there's no reason these two beautiful women, smart, wouldn't get along. And according to them, they did get along. And a lot of this was this media push of trying to make Meghan look difficult and create competition. And this is what women deal with on a daily basis, whether you're a royal or not, is if you have two strong women or women in general who are in a similar space, they're going to put you in competition, where men don't often face it like that. They often aren't put in competition. They're encouraged to work together. They're encouraged to be a team. Team sports for a long time were solely kind of taught to be like a male thing, and women were more everything is more competitive when it comes to women, and the way we look at women and the way we're conditioned to pit women against each other. Even subconsciously at times I have to fight the internal misogyny in myself to be like, no, Joleen, no. So I actually think Kate Middleton there's nothing she can do in this. She is she's part of this institution. Her husband's going to be king, but she has to fall in line. And so there's no point with the current system where she could just speak up. I mean, as we saw, despite, Meghan talked about Me Too and all these things, and Camilla, the other two senior royals, female senior royals, Kate, they didn't say anything about that kind of stuff because they're told what they can and cannot say. And then what we learned with the media and the Royal Rota, how they each have these different press offices, and they have to feed this media monster. And it's like, well, as long as it's not my family, we'll throw Harry and Meghan at him, kind of to the wolves, So I don't think it says much negatively about Kate Middleton that she didn't, that she hasn't said anything, because she's not allowed to. She doesn't have that voice. There were so many times even Diana wanted to say things, or Princess Margaret wanted to say things, or Elizabeth herself probably wanted to say things. But even despite being the queen and the figurehead, she really didn't have control over her schedule or her words. That was something Elizabeth always said. She is a servant to the crown. So it's truly the institution that the racism sits in and all that. I mean, obviously people too, but I think it has more to do with pitting these two women against each other, when it would have been, like you said, so beautiful to not only have them work together, but also have Meghan Markle be a beacon, a bridge, a light, progress. That's what I was sad. We just had Mims drop in, so I'm going to make it make sense.
All right, great, because I'm going to stir my food.
Okay, you leave when Mims comes. Okay. No. Hey, Mims.
What's up?
Friend.
I think I kind of agree with Busy. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I kind of agree with Busy in the sense that I had a higher expectation for Kate, but like once I actually started deep diving, it would serve her no purpose to buck the system.
Yeah.
The monarchy's reign is very fragile in the first place.
Yes.
They really technically don't need them. They're just figureheads that the country is paying taxes to support. So if you are getting paid a salary literally to do nothing, because the parliament has control.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that Kate decided to conform. And I also think that the other royals are upset. They thought by stripping them of their titles and making them pay back the money would, I don't know, punish them, but I think they owed like maybe 2 or 3 million. They just made 80. So and they can live how they want. So I don't think that there ever will be another like reconciliation between the brothers. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so either. I think what you said about Kate is true for William too. As much as is the same thing we saw with Elizabeth and Margaret, is that you know, despite those sisters being so close, when Elizabeth became the queen and it became that she was doing what's best for the institution and it became about that, then it's less about your sister's wants. So it's the same thing with Prince William. It's less about his relationship with Harry and more about protecting the legacy of the monarchy and the future for his family. So he falls in line as well. So I also, after this documentary, probably I don't have high hopes that they will have any kind of reconciliation, you know? So I agree with you.
I really like, my biggest question for the prince who will eventually now become king, why doesn't he shave his head? Like, the bald spot is real.
William?
Yeah.
Harry's he's got one too, but he's got the hair up front, you know? But yeah, I think William would probably be better off to shave his head. But I don't know why he's not shaving that head. It's probably the institution won't let him.
The another issue that I have with Kate is that whole Stepford wife thing. Like, you literally drop a baby, and the first time I saw her go downstairs right after giving birth, you know, with full makeup and her clothes on, I was kind of like, this is weird. But then when it became like a thing, and I'm like, you have to be in all kinds of pain if you just had a baby.
Yes.
And it's frigid. I think that they would almost do better, because the older people are going to die out, right? Let's not. And younger people, they had the Brexit, they had all these things. I don't think that they have the same admiration for the crown the way that the older generations do. But you could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that was something even that Prince Charles was talking about when he was young. Modernizing the monarchy, modernizing the crown, is taking them into the next generation of royals. But unfortunately, what seems to happen is everyone just ultimately falls in line. And I think that this institution, just from my opinion, would benefit from modernizing quite a bit with people and with what now, you know, British families look like and all that stuff. So I think that's something that would help them, if anything. To kind of update, and you need to progress with time. I mean, it is like this ancient, respected,
500.
Yeah, but you also have to progress with time, because if you don't, you die out, and that's what they're constantly terrified of losing. And it is, like you said, and we've talked about, on such fragile ground. You would think they would, I think, just make it easier for the royals as human beings. But it's almost as though a lot of people might not see the royals as human beings, but they are. And they're human beings who, despite, you know, getting money from the public and having a lot of privilege, they have a lot of loss of themselves. You lose that sense of self with that kind of service. And you also, you know,
start
the
hanging
loneliness.
out with Jeffrey Epstein.
You start, we'll get into Prince Andrew, yeah. But the real villain in all this is Prince Andrew, and the protection that I believe the crown has had towards a man with known pedo, backgrounds and things. But it's heartbreaking to know that now this is just generational, from Queen Elizabeth's uncle to Prince Charles to Princess Margaret. I mean, really, a lot of this is just this unrequited love, this thing where they aren't allowed to truly be with. It's when we all try to find our people, and not everybody does. Some people are, want to be by themselves. It doesn't define you as a person to be in a relationship, but ultimately that's, societal standards are find your person, settle down. Well, if you're told for generations after generations that you can't be with who you truly want to be with because it doesn't fit into this institution, and you see that not working, you see that failing, because all these relationships and marriages have failed. Queen Elizabeth only has one son who's still married to his original wife, I should say. And then they were so against divorce, and they were, there's things that you have to keep up with the times, and you have to also allow these people to marry. I just think, honestly, maybe I'm dumbing this down, maybe I'm naive, but at a basic human level, I think that it's a sad story of heartbreak with a lot of these royals, because of these stringent rules.
I I think as an American, we think like that, but there are so many countries who have arranged marriages. Do you know what I mean? I think if I was a royal, I probably, well, I mean, you have to know what you're getting into. Some of the things that they say in the documentary, I'm like, you have to kind of know. At the time that you decide to accept the marriage proposal, then, I mean, she's a smart girl. Where was the research? Where was the, like,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
do you know what I mean? Like the
Busy, you're on
curtsy
mute.
thing.
Sorry,
The
Mims. Go
curtsy
When
ahead.
do you
thing.
say no though, Mims? Like I think where my frustration is, because I used to feel that way. Like, she knows what she was marrying into. This is what this is, you get with the, when they're Rome, do what Romans do. But when do you get a chance to say, and I think Harry said it best, should we just allow my wife to go through these things because we've all been through them? So now we just got to do it. Or when do we say, this is not the way it's, we all hated it. It sucked for all of us. When do we get a chance to say, not anymore? Not anymore. Like, yeah, you know what you're marrying into, what you're getting into, but that's the same for, and this is a bad take, but that's the same for slavery. Once they were sold on that boat, girl, either you're gonna jump or you're gonna get to the land, but you know that you're going to be on somebody's property. When do you decide that you're gonna revolt, or do you just stick with the norm? And I love that they decided that I love you and I'm gonna marry you and I'm gonna stick with you and your family and what's happening. But what I'm not going to take is the abuse. And I don't care if everybody else in this family has been abused. It stops today. And this is what we move forward with. You have to pick a time when this is not acceptable anymore.
Okay, so I have a question for both of you guys. Joleen,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to jump in this one or not, but
Okay.
when I watched the first three and she, spoke in depth about her feminism and, as a child, she, wrote to that commercial or, CBS, whomever had that commercial line and got it changed because it wasn't appropriate. I was like, okay, I'm very impressed by that. She's very aware. She's very smart. She's very articulate. And then when it came to her mother, same thing. Very smart woman. But how do you not have a conversation about race at all?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I remember that part.
That was
where she was like,
impactful
she
to
didn't
me.
know she was black or something. She was like, I never thought about that. That kind of
Not
stuff.
that
Okay.
she didn't know she was black. I think a lot of parents, and my mom had the conversation with me, recognizing what your role is in society, being black, and things that you should or should not do because you are black. Pay
That has nothing.
attention.
I'm sorry. No, she was very clear. I've never lived my life as a black woman. I've never been
And she
seen
didn't
as that.
have
And
those
that's not the
conversations.
truth. That's not the truth. You look like a biracial woman with your natural hair. It's just
but
as
I
an
think
adult, she
that
chose to.
this is
to
a
flat iron it.
colorism conversation, though. I think colorism plays into effect, and this is what we do in America. Colorism then comes into effect of how light-skinned people are treated versus dark-skinned people. So maybe the conversation didn't need to be had because
They were calling her mom the N-word in a parking
her
lot.
mother, because her mother is a lot darker than her and has locks.
I just don't. I find that hard to believe that two very, very smart women, and even at 12, she was extremely smart and focused, don't have a conversation even after the N-word is said. Those are the things I was kind of like, huh?
Yeah, but if says
Joleen,
Meghan,
am I off
Meghan,
here?
I think you're reaching, because says Meghan, throughout her life before she got married to Harry, she never ever experienced those microaggressions.
She was there when her mom got called an N-word.
Yeah, but that was her mother, and she did not like her mother. It could have been a nanny. She didn't like her nanny or her mother. She didn't like the person who was caretaking for her being called or talked about like that. That doesn't mean that she directly has experienced it. And as a lighter skinned person, and we know how colorism works, she never ever had to walk through life looking like she was my complexion, and people didn't treat her like that. So when it came to her mother not giving the talk to her, I was uncomfortable because my mom had to talk to all of us. But also, I I wave a white flag because Megan, until she got married into the royal family, was like, well, the girls didn't say nothing about me. So was her mother wrong for not having a black conversation with her because she never was treated like that. If she would have stayed her ass in America and married a regular person here, she probably never would have experienced any of this stuff, and she could have walked through life like a white woman for the rest of her life. Who her mother could have never known that she was going to marry a royal. Like, so it's a double-edged sword, because I feel like her mom did the right thing, because all of our people in our community just want our children, our family members, cousins, aunts, uncles, whatever, to just live freely. Like, if I have children, I want my child to just live. I don't want them to be berated by race, ethnicity, background. I want them to just be able to live and operate in this community. Megan's mom got that. Her daughter was able to live and operate in this community. She only felt slighted when she decided to marry a royal. But outside of that, Meghan Markle just was able to live. When she was a feminist, she was thinking about being a woman.
You said so you agree with Pepe. She purposely passed so that she could have some form of privilege? Is that what you're saying?
Here's Pepe's comment. Yep, Meghan definitely made the conscious decision to pass. It's just in the US, her experience was different. But as light as she is, in the UK, she definitely got the black experience.
I don't know if I
mean, I think that you think that I think that you think that I am admonishing her. I'm not. I'm just, that was very surprising to me. I can remember Holly Berry's mother having a conversation with her, letting her know, well, you present to the world as a black woman, so your life would be easier if you just acknowledged that. Now, if Meghan had said that, my mom said I looked more Caucasian than biracial, or you know what I mean? So I just chose to live my life that way, as opposed to glazing over the topic, because that is a topic. That's why we're having this conversation now. She got to experience what life was like with the one drop rule in Britain, and she didn't like it. And it's she could have been a very powerful I don't know, driving force to make that change. But I did a deep dive, and I tried to listen to what the opposition said about her. Mm-hmm. And why they love Kate. Of course, they love Kate because they think she's the most beautiful Caucasian woman in the world. But if you are paid basically to attend parties and things of that nature, and you choose to buck the system and we're paying for it, I think that's where they're coming from. I don't agree with it, but I do think that that's what the opposition is trying to say. Like, here was this American, she knew she was marrying a prince, and all of a sudden now the things that are in our traditions, in our culture, you're saying you're too good for that, or you're not going to fall in line. And that's why they don't like her. But the black thing, it's hard to watch, but that's why you have that conversation with children very early on. That's why Ashley Darby wears her natural hair.
Because she spent a lot of time with her dad. She spent a lot of time with her mom.
Talk about the fathers.
I do want to get into that conversation, Joleen.
Oh my gosh, we do.
Actually, let's just skip into it. Let's go straight into it.
All right, take us right into it, Busy.
I gotta run.
Man, you have been such a fantastic addition. Go park your car and come back. I love hearing you and Busy together along with me. I'll put myself in it. But we love you. So find a way to join us back, or maybe we need to revisit this when we're all available and just keep diving into stuff too.
Yeah, we have
I do want to say this. I have a very, very, very special segment coming up tonight when I do my Potomac, like extremely special. I would love if you guys could be there. It's going to be like a whole moment. I'm doing something really special for one of my subscribers on live. They have no idea this is happening.
I'll be there. What time? Can you tell everyone so they can join your channel? Can you guys drop Mim's or the mods? Can you please drop Mim's link to his channel in the
I'll
chat.
see if I can make it.
I mean, you or whatever. I think it. Trust me, when you see what it is, it's gonna be really, really cool. I guarantee you, it'll put you in the Christmas spirit.
Am I gonna cry? Because I've been crying a lot.
You
No.
might.
Okay,
You might
what
cry.
time,
Busy
Mims?
will definitely cry.
Yeah.
So I won't be attending then. I'm trying to keep my sanity.
My time would be like I think like 8:20 Central. So I
Okay.
don't know what time that.
So that's
but yeah, that's okay.
7 something yours. No, 8 something. 6 something yours.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you'll cry. But anyway, I gotta run. I'm hungry. So
All right, we love you. Thank you for that perspective. It was fantastic. We love you. Go support Mims, guys. Bye, friend. Oh, Busy Blue. Okay. Take us. Let's I'm gonna read a couple comments here. Biz, are you okay with me doing that? And then we'll kind of
This is your channel.
Yeah, but I love that you joined me for this, and I want to make sure that you get everything you want out because you're my bestie. AMM says, I'm born in the UK and lived here all my life, and Meghan looks mixed race to me, and by UK standards, she looks mixed race and couldn't pass for white. Evelyn says, I think Meghan, because of her upbringing personally, did not have the experience of racism. I don't think she was trying to pass.
I agree with that, and especially being in the West Coast, the most accepting and most futuristic looking state of all of the states outside of like New York. Like I think she was just existing.
Well, I think you're right. And in California, and I know this just from being from my husband's experience and him sharing it with me, is that in LA and her being an actor, and my husband and I, we were pursuing that and comedy and all that when we were in LA. And my husband being Mexican American, the casting people, and you would see image consultants. So there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that maybe people don't know, or maybe you do know, I don't know. But you have, your image consultants that kind of help you, build your brand with your headshots and how your agents are going to sell you and, which auditions and stuff. And with my husband, they said he was ethnically ambiguous. And that around the time that Meghan Markle was kind of hitting the scene in acting and Suits and all that, that was like, as sick as it sounds, the trending thing to be. You didn't want to look like a certain, you wanted to be ambiguous. So my husband could go play, maybe they were like, you could play someone from like India, or you could possibly Native American, or you could, this, that. So maybe that's something that Meghan Markle got conditioned to too, with her experience in Hollywood, is they will mess with lots of things in your head and lots of identity stuff. And it's all, to sell stuff. So that kind of got me thinking like, oh, I wonder if, she was kind of sold that way, if you will, as an actor.
Like that. It seemed like that when she was going through her story. Yeah.
Yeah. Pepe says, I don't want to fault Meghan in identifying as biracial. I would choose the easier route as well. Micro and macro aggressions are real and can affect every aspect of your life.
Amen, Pepe.
Yes. Okay, Busy. Take us into and here's Mim's channel, you guys, so you can subscribe. Take us into the father.
I don't know
stuff
if I can take you into it, but as everything started to pan out,
we will have to get some British people too. If you are British and you're someone, or your content creator or whatever, hit me up in the DMs. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Busy, on Instagram, because we would love to have people who, as I talk, I am very interested in the royal stuff. And I do, to my American extent, understand that there's a difference between that and the parliament and actually the politics of it all. We do see on, like, let's say The Crown, the Queen meeting with the prime ministers and stuff, but ultimately the royals, they don't, pass law. They don't, they're not they're not the politicians, they're more the figureheads, and they serve the country, and they go out, and they have all these royal duties and engagements, but it's not like Queen Elizabeth's like, here is the rule of the land, the law of the land. It's not like that at all. So yes, hit me up in the DMs and I understand The Crown is not real, you guys. I understand The Crown is not real. I've watched a lot of documentaries, read a lot of things about the royals too. I'm just saying I was using just that example, but I realized that it's not real. But it's so good. But yeah, if we do have some Brits that want to come in and on our next live and give their perspective, that would be fantastic.
Great. Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
I think first of all, You know what was interesting to me? That's what I said. The first 3 episodes were so good to me. So good. I was the last 3, they were good. I mean, I watched them. With the biases that people have, you would think, and the way that the community and people talked about Meghan Markle and Mary and Harry, all this stuff dating, you would think, oh my God, the black people about to get in here and act the fool. They about to just act the fool. Because I was thinking about my family, like, yeah, we up in there making Marco. Yeah, all of this. It's about to be a mess. It's about to be a mess. Who said we can't make catfish for the wedding? Who doing the food? Who doing the food? Like, just a mess. A mess. A mess. And I'm just thinking about my family specifically. Had I been married into royalty, like we going through the fried chicken, catfish, the stuff that he like, greens. When it came down to it, it was the white people's. No shade, Joleen, but they just ruined everything. It was the white peoples who came down and just acting a fool. Actually, before we get to her daddy, let's start off with the aunt. What is wrong with Samantha?
Oh my God. Okay. We'll talk about her. Yes. TV Talks with Tom. We should have thought of TV Talks with Tom. He would have been great.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. So let's bring up Samantha Markle. So what happened once Prince Harry and Meghan were well on their way to, they're in love, they're engaged, it's looking pretty good. Prospects are looking good. We have, let me share the screen again. We have William and, William and Harry and Kate and Meghan, they seem to, be developing. They're the next generation of royals, and it's beautiful to see because if, obviously as Americans, we're watching it from far away, but if you were invested in Diana and, just what we see in our press, it was like, wow, these brothers, it's like, it's their time to rise. And this is great. But
Can
then,
we pause? Because I know
yeah.
your parents were married.
Yes.
In the comments, because I have several half siblings. I think every single one of my siblings are half. I don't have one whole sibling. Can you put in the comments, do you have half siblings? And if you watched this documentary, would your half sibling act like that? So tell us if you have a half sibling and if your half sibling would have acted like that. Because I heard somebody saying, well, they just have sisters, they just have siblings. That has nothing to do with a damn thing. I have all of my siblings are half, and they would never have done any of that stuff.
However, add into money. Money can corrupt.
I don't think my siblings would have. I don't think my siblings would have.
And I
have one sibling that they probably would have been able to get to.
I think I have like family members, like extended family members who I don't have relationships with. Like,
really?
Whether like, like weird. Yeah, there's every family's got weirdos who would take cash and run, which is what we saw with, so as you guys answered that in the chat. So Samantha Markle, Meghan Markle's dad and mom were together for a short period of time. They separated. From the documentary and what we know, the mother had primary custody of Meghan, but she did have a good relationship with her father. They would spend time together on the weekends and maybe summers, and he worked in production, I believe, in Los Angeles. So, but he had children before Meghan, and these children are like 17 years older. So there's a big age gap. Now, Meghan says she really didn't have relationship with them because it was such an age gap and her parents were only together for a short period of time. So one of the sisters in particular is Samantha Markle. Now, Samantha Markle to me in my opinion, is exceptionally disgusting because she has went to the press so many times. So once they're engaged and all this stuff is happening, this is when Meghan starts experiencing family members coming out of the woodwork, like these half siblings who are ready to sell stories on her. And it just looked a little trashy.
It like looked
Trailer Park trashy.
It was trashy. It was trashy. Let's not forget though, Meghan, she always wanted this big family, and her sisters were way older than her. This is very similar to how Taylor Bay grew up. All of the siblings were older than him. I think his youngest sibling is 18 years older than him. And so he got close to the nieces and nephews because they were his age.
Which I think is common in like bigger families or families where you do have those kind of age gaps or multiple relationships or marriages.
She was messing up relationships with her own children.
Yes. So Samantha Markle allegedly she's had children taken from her. One of them is in this documentary, and she ended up being raised by her grandparents with her brother. So that must have been Samantha's son, I assume. And she went on to be a attorney. What kind of attorney was she? Was she a immigration attorney?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes. And her and Meghan actually developed a relationship because they were closer in age than Meghan was to her half sister, Samantha, who she said she only met a handful of times in her life, you know? And so they developed a relationship, but Samantha didn't have a relationship with her daughter, but Meghan had a relationship with her daughter because when Meghan found out that Samantha had this daughter out there, Meghan asked her dad, hey, can I get her email? I want to talk to her. You know, I'm an auntie because technically Meghan's an aunt, you know,
Right.
And so she reached out to her and they developed a bond. Now, Samantha and her daughter, they struggled. They didn't talk and then they would talk, and they had their final falling out about Samantha selling stories to the press and a book and whatever else she was going to be doing. And when she found out she wasn't invited to the wedding, she put that out there. And it's like, of course, if we're talking about this institution that does not want bad press and doesn't want this messiness, even though it follows them, they're definitely not going to invite you, Samantha.
I felt bad for the daughter because from the outside looking in, like, it's like, no, that's your mom. We're not going to invite you because you may even give stuff to your mom. But it seemed like the daughter had no relationship at all with the mother. She really loved Meghan and she wanted to come to the
She
wedding,
looked at her,
figure out things. And it seemed, it was frustrating for me. I do love how they ended the whole docu-series, but it was frustrating to me to see that relationship was severed because of how ridiculous she had a crazy mom, Bob.
Oh my God. Yeah. We'll pull up a picture of Samantha Markle so you guys can see, but it seems
get a
like
good picture of her, Joleen. She had a crazy mom blowout. She has an 80s haircut still.
Yeah, it seems like
it was giving Kelly Kapowski.
Do not insult Kelly Kapowski in that way.
It was blonde, but she was giving teased now. Y'all follow me. It was teased, and then it was giving Kelly Kapowski in the front.
Oh my gosh. It really was. And it was sad that it seemed like she got the ear of Meghan's dad, Thomas Markle, and so much came about. So Meghan had what seemed to be a pretty good relationship with her dad up until this time. And that is when the institution, the Crown, suspected that he was maybe selling stories to the media about getting ready for this wedding. And
oh my God. Okay, I'm going to stir my food one more time. Can you tell this story about the daddy?
Okay, so you would see the dad in different print media outlets looking up Meghan and Harry on the internet. You would see him working out, saying, I'm getting ready for the wedding. So not anything really nefarious about the couple, but still very shady coming from a dad willing to sell stories about his daughter. Now, from the looks of Thomas Markle, just based on looks, it looks like he might need a buck or two. You know, LA, the business, it's rough. And, he took the bait, and they were willing at that time to kind of publish any story about Meghan because it sells when you publish stories about the royals. And then we know about the royal rota from this documentary. So he's doing that. Meghan and Harry contact him and say, hey, or I think Meghan contacted him and said, hey, Dad, I mean, are you selling stories? I mean, if you are, just let me know. But is this happening? You know, I'm not mad. I just need to, because it could be forgiven if this is, maybe he's like, oh, well, I needed the extra money and it wasn't anything bad. I just, was talking about getting ready for your wedding. I think you can maybe come back from that, but he denied it. And then all communication was cut off from Meghan And she just, when he said he didn't, she was like, I just didn't believe him. And that had to be heartbreaking for a daughter to have to come to terms that her father was selling her out for $1. He was invited to the wedding. All of a sudden, he wasn't going to the wedding, and he wasn't telling her, he was telling the press. So we come to find out, we think Samantha Markle, who already had it out for Meghan in the press, got to her dad. And when Meghan was like, Dad, I heard on the news you're not coming. I heard you might be in the hospital. Are you okay? Was texting him, calling him. I think it was a lot of times. I don't remember the exact number. And then when they call each other M and H, when Harry reached out to the father, like, please just let us know you're okay. I think they finally got a response that just did not sound like her dad. She said he called her Megan, and he never called her Megan. He called her Meg, which most of her family does. So she just knew, when you text with a family member or a friend, if that's the kind of phrases your friend uses, or if that's the emojis your friend uses, or if that's their punctuation. Like, everybody knows now, we're such a tech savvy culture that whether you're talking to someone you text with regularly, the different things they do. She's like, he used ellipses. Like, there was things that it just didn't sound like him. So most likely Samantha Markle got her mitts into her dad, and then they just kept selling stories and bad press, unfortunately, about Meghan to these outlets because they were lured by the almighty dollar, which is very sad. So Meghan didn't have her dad at her wedding, not because she didn't want him there, but because he was selling stories to the media. And he was going to the media even before going to her. So it's such a very hurtful thing. So instead, she had to ask Prince Charles to walk her down the aisle. So in this process of already kind of being, she's exploited by her dad, she's getting ridiculed in the press. She feels as though she's being thrown under the bus by the institution, because under the royal rota of communication with these media outlets, somebody has to be fed to the wolves, which is the media. And we saw this happen with Diana. Once Diana was out of the royal family, especially, there was no protection for her. Once she was officially divorced from Prince Charles, she spoke in interviews about this. She didn't feel protected. She had people on the inside who were supposed to be her friends or working for her, who actually were answering to the institution. They were always going back to the institution. So there were times that, she was afraid that they were setting her up with cutting the brakes on her car. I mean, this is all just things that she thought maybe was happening, and people close to her thought was happening, listening to her phone calls, but they didn't have Diana's best interest at heart. Instead, they had the institutions. So now we're seeing this happen again with Meghan Markle. So we can't have Prince William and Prince Kate thrown to the wolves because William's gonna be the next king. Charles already has enough bad press with Camilla. He was finally able to marry her. He's still waiting to become King Charles, because Elizabeth is still alive at this time. And they're trying to get the backlash off him, but they have to feed this media machine. So they have to have a relationship with the press because they do need exposure. And we know that the royals in the past tried to figure out, the monarchy, how to get their message out, or how to get their themselves out there and maintain their likability to the public, to the point where Prince Philip agreed to do like a docu-series, I think on the BBC or something. And then they did it. And I think they ended up regretting it. And now you can't really find it anywhere, but I think there's clips on YouTube. So there's been a long-standing discussion, I think, amongst the royals on how do we balance ourselves and the media that we have to feed, because we have to feed them because we're based on public popularity, and the public, since they fund us, they want an inside look at our lives. But what we know about media, whether it's in the UK or in the US, is that they're vultures, and stories, things that will sell. You see that on YouTube. If certain blog things are trending, people will beat it and beat it and beat it because you're going to get the clicks and views and you're going to make money off of it. That's why I've struggled with transitioning to, I want to cover more stories and things like that, but I also don't want to be making money per se off of a family's decline or people cheating or people dying. I don't want to have to be the first person to go live about a death. That's just not
Yeah,
how, I mean,
that's sad.
it's a rough thing, but that's kind of how our media works now. So to me, Busy, it seemed as though we were seeing a pattern repeat. We can get into the dad stuff, but what happened to Diana, especially when she was officially divorced from the family, the protection, and they're like, throw her to the wolves. She's been a problem, you know, she's kind of been our Achilles tendon for a long time. So whatever, good luck, Diana. And now we see that with Meghan Markle, but having to do with her dad.
Do you
I
think
explained,
that they did that because it's like, you know, we discussed already that this has happened several times in the family. Like people just go for who they love, da da da. Do you think that they looked at Meghan Markle was like, girl, we even care even less about you, sis? Like people have done this already, and we really didn't care about you. Like any child that you bore or bear, it has nothing to do with the crown, girl. So you could have mental disabilities, mental issues, struggles, girl, die in the tunnel. Like we really don't care. It felt like it came that way. Look at his nasty fucking face. Sorry, let's get into the daddy. Because when the daddy was, when she was younger, I was up. I went up for the daddy, you know, because I have, you know, father parental issues already. And he was in her life recording her all the time. I love the video that they show when she had an attitude. And he's like, what's going on? You're recording,
Dad.
She had an attitude. The girl had an attitude, and I loved it. I love because it humanized her. It really humanized her for me. She had an attitude. Don't be recording me. I'm done at the beach. I'm done trying to catch fish. And he had her regularly. I didn't understand why majority of the time. I know he went with her for the weekends. He said she said she never saw her family members or his other children because like
they were so much older.
What bothered me is that I think Meghan thought that she had like a solid family unit. Like my dad's a little aloof, but my mom had custodial parental rights over me, so I normally stay with her. She kind of raised me. We did whatever we did. Da, da, da. Now that we're going into this royalness, and I think what I wonder a lot is how the dad looked at his daughter, because looking at Meghan Markle's mother, she's so gentle, she's so kind, she's so caring, and she's everything that I feel as if a parent should be or feel. When those images came out about the dad, and so when you first saw them, Joleen, did you feel like they were?
No,
I want to say scripted, but did you feel like they were? Did you feel like they were authentic?
The dad and the sister?
No, just the dad. When they had all those photos coming out with the dad. Or like, can you remember what? Because I will say, originally, I was like, oh, look at him looking at those photos, trying to figure out what they. I like bought into it, and I am a slave to media. I already said that. I'm really bad at discerning things. I think that helps me be good at my job because I'm able to like dissect it later. But originally, I'm like, oh, look at the dad. He's on the computer looking at royal accuracies and what you should and shouldn't do.
That was such a setup. He was selling stuff to the media.
Did you feel that way though when you first saw it?
Yes, 100%. Yes, 100%. This guy works in LA. He knows how the machine works. I lived in LA long enough. If you've been there for a period of time, you know how this stuff works. And the minute they hit him up, he looks like he was struggling. I'm just going to go based off of that alone.
Picture right here.
I mean, and he unfortunately probably, what I was talking about when you were gone, maybe he didn't think it'd be a bad thing because it's like, oh, I can make a little bit of money and I'm just telling them how I'm getting ready for the wedding. But
You can get
again,
money for your own children being in the. This is what I don't understand. You playing a short-term game instead of a long-term game, y'all. Okay, new thing in the comments. New thing in the comments. New question. New question. Y'all ready? New question in the comments. If your child was marrying into wealth, we're talking trillions of dollars. Who knows? Money long over there. Okay, stolen, okay, but money long over there. Would you play the I'm gonna get quick fast money from the blogs, or I'm gonna wait till my daughter helps me? One or two. One, quick money from the blogs. Two, wait till my daughter helps me. Because the mother looked like she was, y'all put that in the comments now, one or two. The mother looked like she was struggling too. But now when she was doing this interview, girl, Sister Locks was looking good and clean. Okay, her Sister Locks was looking good and clean. And she was saying, my daughter. I could God changed it up. I remember when the girl was going down to the grocery stores and looking a hot ass mess. Now she's like, oh, my daughter. Girl, you playing the wrong game. You're playing the wrong game.
This
Her
dad doesn't
played the stupid game.
Yeah. He
Her
doesn't
dad
look
played the
like he would
stupid
play
game.
the long game. He looks like he would take that quick deal, and he did, unfortunately. And then it looks like Samantha, in my opinion, it looks like she got her hooks into him, and unfortunately that became the demise of the relationship. And again, as I forgot who was saying in the chat, but Meghan didn't disinvite her dad. I mean, she had to question if he was selling stuff. Once he's selling these stories, they cannot, the monarchy, the institution, they can't trust him to now come to this event, that he won't sell more stories or fabricate more things about the royals. So it's a protection thing. So she had no other choice other than that. And, he wasn't even talking to her. He was talking to the press. And she was trying to get a hold of him. And even Harry tried to get a hold of him. So it was a really sad situation for Meghan to lose this relationship with her dad. But I don't think this is something that is uncommon. I think people lose relationships with parents for less. And if you have like a narcissistic parent, or you have, already kind of maybe a rocky relationship, or you have a parent who has a little bit of jealousy issues, or they're trying to balance the jealousy issues of multiple children. Parents sell, unfortunately, their kids out for less than this. And I just, when I was watching, I was like, I bet this would be the case for quite a few people who entered into, if you were an American and you entered into this royal family, or even celebrity. We've seen it happen just to, celebrities in the US, their family members kind of selling them out in their stories for money. So that was very sad. So that relationship was gone. Then we see with the wedding, it's not necessarily about what Meghan wants or what Harry wants. It's more about the institution, and it's always broadcast. It's always a big deal. I mean, when Diana's wedding to Prince Charles, my mom, I think my mom said I was a tiny, tiny baby. And she remembers, just everyone was watching it. And the fact that even at Meghan and Harry's wedding, there was like 150,000 people that were going to be standing outside, I think they said, something like that. So it is this big deal. Kate and William's wedding was a big deal.
It was.
Queen Elizabeth, and Philip's wedding was a big deal. But we did get to see lots of celebrities. Serena Williams is one of her besties for the resties. Oprah was in attendance.
Very odd to me. They never talked about their experience, like how they became friends.
Yeah.
It was very odd to me, where she kept coming up and saying, oh, and I was thinking, how do y'all know each other?
Right.
I wish they would have at least talked about that.
I think it's what we see with like Hollywood and LA. It is like incestuous in dating and in friendships. There's a lot of, and I think too, probably, well, I don't know better way to say it, but you find a way to each other, sort of. And it could have been Serena and Meghan could have been a part of the same charitable type stuff.
Yeah.
But Meghan does have it looks like a very big core group of strong women that are friends with her and that spoke during this documentary. I mean, Beyonce's texting her now. I was like, oh my God.
my God. Okay, so I have to leave in like 20 minutes because I have a
Okay, no
Christmas
worries.
thing to do. But
Let's talk about the okay, so we get into the wedding
wait.
happens.
I
I'm
was
sorry.
making a point.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I love how Harry was so unenthused. And I talked to Taylor Bay about this before I got on live with you, and I was saying how Harry was so unenthused about celebrities. Like it was just like, so
He was.
like who cares? And the two instances that I love the most was when, and we're Americans because so we'll love this, when he's like, when Megan's like, oh my God, and Oprah wanted to interview us. And I remember so much excitement in the room. And Harry was like, well, you were excited. And she was like, well, it's Oprah. Because I'm thinking to myself, it's Oprah. Like,
It's
how do you not
Oprah.
care about Oprah? But then when your grandma's the queen, I guess, whatever.
Exactly.
The next one was when she's like, oh, Beyonce just texted me. He was like, and I love how unenthused he is about like the excitement of Americans over
Of
like
American
celebrities.
celebrity. He really wasn't. Harry wasn't impressed. He was like, oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. I like that part too. So they get married, and it seems like things will maybe, we'll see this progress, we'll see this representation. Meghan and Harry are excited to start their work, they say, in the name of the crown and working for the queen and that. But pretty early on, Meghan's now they're seeing how this royal rota is working, and a lot of negative press is being thrown at her after receiving a lot of positive press. So Harry at that time being the most popular royal, and then Meghan getting some good press, and she's breaking down boundaries and she's making history and stuff just with her existence in this family, has to breed a little bit of, jealousy and concern for the other royals who are ultimately going to be taking the throne. So how they feel is that Meghan was thrown to the wolves. And then we start seeing some very hateful, racist stories evolve. And what I don't understand is, and maybe some of the people in the UK or any of the British people watching why do you guys allow Piers Morgan to have a platform? This guy is disgusting, and he's obsessed with putting down women and sexualizing women. He's a misogynist to the core. He's a piece of shit. He's a bad faith actor, and he's a stalker. And he has built his career on that. And we've seen it when he's ventured over to the US, and we've seen it on the different shows he works on in the UK. Again, I know it's not you guys' responsibility. You don't hire and fire, but it's like the Alex Jones of the UK. He is just a bad faith actor. He will sell anything. He's a snake oil salesman, and he's a jealous little sad man who should be gone from the airwaves. He should have to have his own YouTube channel if he wants to spew this hate and obsession with a woman he doesn't even know, who doesn't want to know him. It's triggering to me because we know men on YouTube like this, unfortunately. And so to see these grown men and these grown white men be so invested in this young woman and her future and what she should do and what she shouldn't do, and with talking about her body and slut shaming and all of these things, it's sick. And why that's not being questioned, that takes us back to the misogyny of it all. When you have not only media like that at the forefront, and Piers Morgan, I think at the time, feel free to correct me, Brits, but he was on, I forget the show, but it was like maybe like a morning show of yours or some kind of daily talk show spewing this. And then you have what's going on once the Jeffrey Epstein stuff comes out. You have Prince Andrew, who's a royal who is friends with a pedo, Jeffrey Epstein. And after he had been convicted and was out of jail, he went and stayed with him and did this horrendous interview about, well, it was just, I remember Prince Andrew's just like, well, I mean, it was convenient for me to stay with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedo. And it's like, I'm sorry, you're Prince Andrew. You could afford to stay at the Ritz, something else, than stay with him. So I know it took, the Queen then would, I think she took the duties away from Andrew or whatever, but it took a while. And there's really, I haven't heard him be condemned for this behavior, or
You won't.
there should be a royal statement. But Meghan wears the wrong color, or she wears a hat that looks like poo-poo, or she gives someone the wrong look, and she's the devil. And that can only be explained through racism and misogyny, because why are we protecting Grant? Yes, he's the queen's son, but there's all this evidence in front of us that he is friendly and staying. I mean, there's sexual assault claims against this man, accusations, and yet he's still shown in the public, in the media, going to church with the queen. And so it's like, but they're feeding all this negative press about Meghan. Why don't you just throw Prince Andrew to the wolves? He's a pedo.
They don't care about that. All right, I gotta go. I didn't know it started at 5. Love you, Jolene. I'll be in the comments. I have another
Do you have
Zoom
any
call.
closing thoughts about all of
Yes,
this?
watch the documentary. I loved it. I love Meghan and Harry more. I actually love Harry more than now that I love Meghan, because of the stance that was taken. I truly did think it was Meghan. But I realized that it was Harry. And to be a husband, a father, a brother, a son, a grandson like that, I can only wish that I can instill those things into any children that I have. And Harry's a great man, and I'm excited that here in America we have him.
Yay, we do. All right, Busy. Thank you, everyone. Go subscribe to Busy Blue.
Love you,
Enjoy.
Jolene.
Love you. I'll see you Tuesday for Sip
All
and
right.
Key.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, Piers he's a disgusting weirdo. Good Morning Britain. Thank you so much. And I remember seeing the dynamic between him and a female co-host, and it was just disgusting. Yeah, not just accusations. One of his accusers sued him and won. So there's so much that should be pushed forward about that I feel like all this investment in villainizing Meghan for what? What is Meghan's real crime? I guess I would ask, because I've never understood it. And even after watching this documentary, obviously it's more of a positive spin on Meghan, because it's their documentary and their words that they're finally able to speak on. But I still don't understand what this woman's crime is to the British public, other than just being a smear campaign, because they had to throw someone to the wolves, because someone has to take the brunt of the bad press. And Harry, in seeing this happen to his mom, he speaks on that, and seeing how relentless the press was to his mom, to the point where she was killed in an automobile accident. I believe it was France, in that tunnel. And she was just chased down every moment of her life. And then especially after she was divorced from Prince Charles, officially and technically out of the royal family, even though she was the mother to the future king. I think that it's not hard to assume that some people disgustingly probably thought it would be easier with her out of the picture, because she was someone who was always going to speak. And there was, there's interesting, what did they say? With royals, it's like keep strong and keep quiet. And we know that Princess Diana tried that. She tried to keep strong and keep quiet. It didn't work for her. And her story, her narrative, she didn't get to put her own story out until she finally got to put her own story out in some interviews that she did, that the royals, weren't very pleased about. But Prince Charles also did his own story, and did different interviews with the press and things. And now Harry's seeing that repeat with his own wife and the mother of his child. So they have Archie together, their first son. And there's a lot of pressure. I mean, even in where she wants to birth her child, if, what day she wants to show her child, in something that as Americans, obviously we think is ridiculous, because we didn't grow up with a monarchy. So we're thinking, well, why would you expect these women who just gave birth to have to step outside, that day, put on a dress and some makeup and showcase their baby? But again, it's this dynamic where the public feels as though we pay for you, so show us. We want that inside view of what's happening. But I also think there has to be some, you have to then look at these people as humans and realize that that's, some of these situations is really asking a lot. And you have to ask yourself, like, how much do you actually need to know? And what is it a couple days, if they wait a couple days before they show you their children. So Meghan is just being, her mental health is suffering. And what we know from Princess Diana, her mental health suffered a lot. They do a documentary. I think it was with the royals through the institution with Prince Harry and Meghan, who are now the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And Meghan has a moment of opening up to one of the interviewers because she's struggling. She just had a kid. She's getting harassed in the media. There's racism happening, misogyny. She's used to being able to speak freely. And some people would argue, well, I mean, you married into this and now you kind of give up your voice. But that was something that she didn't feel like she wanted to do or should do per se. It wasn't like she wanted to go out there and expose everything, but she just is, a woman who had a lot of causes that she worked on and someone that was working for different organizations and speaking on behalf of them. So, she felt silenced and she felt like the royal family didn't have her back. And it's weird, the irony or the pattern of it harkening back to Princess Diana when she went to the crown about, Prince Charles allegedly and all the stuff with Camilla and the marriage isn't working and her own mental health and needed help and her own eating disorder and things she battled with. And they really weren't helping them. But what has she lied about, Rita? What is the true, like, what are the big lies that are just, and I'm asking in all sincerity, what is it that people who are very anti-Meghan Markle, what is the big lie that is just so unforgivable? Because the royals lie, the monarchy, the institution must lie, the institution must hide things. They're hiding a pedo in plain sight, Prince Andrew. Instead, they should exile him. He should be gone. He should never be appearing with any of the royals. That is a horrible look. Her crime is being more likable than William and Kate, as well as being Black. And that's what it looks like, Anastasia. That's what it looks like. Dolly Mama Drama says, I still don't think that Meghan and Diana are similar in any way at all. Diana was young when she married. She was British and she dealt with years and years of this stuff. Yes, I can see that Diana was very young, impressionable. I mean, she was 19 and I think Charles is like 30 or something when they got married. And she believed like she could have the princess fairy tale story. But I think in the way that they are alike is in the way that they are so ridiculed and scrutinized for simply existing in a lot of ways. And maybe not wanting they feel as though, or I should say the institution feels as though they might be something that will hurt the institution because they're not necessarily doing things the institution wants them to do them. And also their likability, because when Meghan first came on the scene, it appeared that she was very likable and she was, for the first time, the institution and the crown was going to show that it represents people of color. And so that, made Meghan a target as well. And Prince Harry being the most popular royal, even though he wasn't going to end up, he wasn't in line to be the king. I mean, I don't know how far he was down, like 6th or something. Feel free to correct me in the chat. But I do think dealing with public mental health and public scrutiny and the media attacking them, that is very similar. The slut shaming that Diana experienced is the slut shaming that Meghan Markle experienced. The misogyny that Diana experienced is the same misogyny that Meghan Markle experienced. But obviously there's different ways in that Meghan experienced racism and Diana obviously did not. But a lot of this just wanting blood. I mean, they would get so much money for these Diana stories the same way these publications would get so much money for the stories on Meghan Markle. And it looked to just be a smear campaign on both of them in a lot of ways. And as you can see, I would argue and wonder, does the British public even think? Do they even dislike Meghan Markle as much as the British media and some of the US media would like you to believe? Or is this just propaganda that they're putting out there? And we know that the media, within our own American politics, propaganda is huge. And, propaganda, unfortunately, is big with lots of things in getting messages out or people to believe certain things. And it seems like it is a propaganda machine with what we saw in this documentary. There's a very small social media group of Meghan hate, yet it is consuming these social media outlets to the point where it looks like the majority is hateful. Something similar we might have seen with Amber Heard when that studied years from now. And I know people have very strong opinions on Amber Heard, but there is no doubt that there was a social media machine, and there was definitely a push on social media to villainize her, despite what we saw in the trial. It was happening, long before then, and we see that with a lot of public figures, unfortunately, with social media and even here on YouTube. So, I'm still waiting on what the big lie is. Okay. Rita says in the interview, she said she grew up being an only child when in fact she lived with her dad from a toddler for around 10 years. Okay. Lived with him primarily and not with her mother? Because I guess I don't understand how that is something that is so unforgivable that now we hate this woman and she's the reason that Harry left the royal family and she's ruined everything. Because there was a time where people would say the same thing about Camilla, where Camilla was the mistress in this situation, and now she's going to be the queen consort and has respect from the public and stuff. But she was a married woman carrying on an affair with Prince Charles. I do have empathy for the two of them in that they did obviously really love each other, and Prince Charles wasn't able to be with the person he really wanted to be with because the institution said, no, you can't do that. You have to marry someone else. And that led a lot of the royals down paths of unhappiness and scandal because they just weren't allowed to pick who they wanted to love. So if she lived with her dad, despite that, her siblings are 17 years older. So if she's born and her sibling's 17, most likely, even if they're in the house when she's a baby, how much of a relationship does she have with them when they're 27 and she's 10 years old? They're half siblings. I just think if they're, I still don't quite understand. I really don't. I don't quite understand the amount of vitriol toward this woman. And I also think comparing William, Kate to Meg, Harry don't think it does any favors. It's not Will and Kate's fault. They're next to the throne. Exactly. Diana would not want her boys being compared to each other. That was the real sadness in this, because I think that from what Meghan has said and what other people have said and what maybe even Kate has said, they have, the royal statements were that for a while that Meghan and Kate got along just fine. And I bet they did get along fine. And I do think it probably had something to do with pitting these two women against each other because it sells papers. Look at how in whatever reality show you watch, even, I love watching when Celebrity Big Brother UK was on, and I know they're bringing Big Brother back. I'm excited. BB UK, even our Big Brother, our Housewives, our reality shows. We love seeing drama like that. It sells. We love seeing women fighting with each other or women with means fighting with each other, powerful women. It's just something that we've been conditioned to get kind of used to, just pitting women against each other. And the media does that quite often. And so they started these insane, crazy rumors about these two women who probably didn't feel that way about one another. Maybe the pressure from the institution and things like that might have caused rifts with this whole, royal rota and this, media monster. But I don't see where these two wouldn't get along. I mean, they appeared, and according to Meghan, to get along as well. So it's the count of lies, 64. Well, what are some other ones? Are there better ones than that? Then, oh, hey, I actually lived more with my dad than my mom for 10 years. You know, she did grow up as an only child. Yeah, her half siblings were so much older. So I guess I'm still wondering, like, what's worse than pedophilia? Is Meghan Markle worse than pedophilia? That's what I'm asking. Because that's what you have with Prince Andrew and the institution and what they're protecting right now. Is that worse? Is Meghan Markle worse than infidelity? Because that's what Prince Charles did. And that's what allegedly they're not putting allegations against Prince William. But we know Prince Charles did that. There's allegation against Prince Philip. So what did Meghan Markle do that's any worse than any of these men who are still respected in the monarchy? And what did Harry do wrong by wanting to protect his wife from going down the same path as his mother and being attacked? Because not only his wife, it's the mother of his 2 children now. And how is she benefiting from having him leave when she was someone who had a history of wanting to serve and service and, being involved in different charities and that. And they make a fantastic team. If anything, I think the institution lost out in not getting Meghan and Harry and not protecting them and not progressing and modernizing and not legitimizing, the importance of mental health and not protecting and not recognizing their own racism, which obviously exists in the world. Because if we exist in a world with racism, okay? So there's racism in the United States, there's racism in the UK. So if we exist in this world with racism, how is it not also going to exist within the crown or within the United States political system? It's that there isn't some barrier around, the monarchy that's going to keep racism out. What's happening in the world is going to happen. I always have this argument with when Big Brother airs in the US and people say, oh, they're doing the race thing. They're playing the race card. Well, if racism exists in the United States, how are the people that we pick to live in a house as representatives of America not going to still experience that in the house if it exists in the world they live in before they go on the show? How is going into these doors going to all of a sudden remove all the racism, the sexism, the ageism that's just going to disappear? Well, it's not. It seems that Meghan's words are misunderstood a lot. I can definitely see that. Yes, Joleen, same. Edited for BB UK excited, sorry. For BB UK coming back. I'm so excited. I just wish that this family drama would have been resolved behind closed doors. Family drama is messy and strange, and mistakes are always made on both ends. True, I can see that. There are many people who just want to hate on Meghan. It's a sickness. Jemmy says it's genuinely disturbing to see these lies about Meghan passed around as truth by right-wing trolls. Imagine counting a stranger's lies, one that will never know of your existence. I mean, that's Piers Morgan creepy. Okay, Harry was wrong for falling in love with a biracial American woman, and she was wrong for being that woman. Period. And that's what it looks like. And you will see it's insane to me how you will see the media still spin this, and you will see these stories about, oh, this is fluff, this is shit, this is garbage, this docu-series, oh God. And it wasn't. I encourage all of you to have an open mind and go watch it and go listen to Meghan and Harry's words, because in not one of those words did I hear hate or separation, or them wanting to cause a larger rift. What I see is 2 people wanting understanding for themselves and wanting the harassment to end, and just wanting their truth out there, but also wanting to maintain. I mean, Meghan and Harry, they attempted multiple times to find a way where they could exist in this institution in a healthy way that would be good for their mental health and their kids. And the first was to go to South Africa, and they could go there and live there, do their work with the Queen and all that. They put it in writing. Unfortunately, that got leaked. So every time they tried to do something to find how they fit into this family, because again, Harry's not going to be the next king, so he's just finding a way to still be able to be with his family, Meghan and his children, and also his grandmother and grandfather, who he seems to respect a lot, and his brother, and be of service to the crown. He's still finding a way. But that information got leaked. And what Harry said in this documentary, once this information becomes public, it's a shit show, because then you have all of this public discussion and discourse. And that's bad for the crown and for the institution, because they want public acceptance. They want popularity. So people are like, no, they can't go there. Or, no, I'm not doing this. They wanted to make this kind of deal with their grandma, with Queen Elizabeth, and say, we still want to serve, but maybe we could go here to get away from this relentless scrutiny in the media and harassment. That fell through. Somehow these, what they put in writing for it was leaked to the press, similar to Meghan's letter to her father, which she was encouraged to write when she went to the Queen and said, what do I do about this dad situation? They said, write him a letter. She wrote him a letter. It was leaked to the Daily Mail. So then she was, in this lawsuit with them for years, because it was illegal for them to post that letter. And we didn't see the institution step in and want to fight against the Daily Mail for posting that. And there could be lots of reasons for that, but Meghan and Harry still wanted to fight it. And so that put an even bigger rift between them and the family. They sought out their own legal team. And it was a long battle that ultimately a judge ruled in favor of Meghan. However, then they were able to bring it back. I forgot the exact words that they used, but the case was brought back into the judicial system there. And so she had to keep fighting until I think they had to do an apology in the paper. I think that was like on the last couple episodes, but it was just this long fight that ultimately she says, was very stressful. Her and Harry said they were in the United States by that time, and she was pregnant with their second child, and she miscarried because of all the stress she was under. Now Harry's like, we can't prove it was because of the Daily Mail and all the stress they put on my wife, but it didn't help a pregnant woman to be going through that. And now there's all these people out there trying to speculate on where she miscarried. Was it in the Santa Barbara house? Was it here? Did she lie about this? It's like, she miscarried. That's something that's so private and so hurtful for so many women. I don't think you deserve the specifics on that. I don't think that's anyone's business. Ultimately, they were able to have a daughter, Lilibet. Yeah, I think is that kind of named after Elizabeth then? But so they were able to now they have 2 children, but that was something that was so personal, and yet she was scrutinized for that, and where it happened and when it happened and how it happened, and she wrote an article about it, and nothing seemed to be good enough. And how women process that kind of grief is on them, and how they choose to share that information is up to them. This isn't the people's baby. This is Meghan and Harry's baby that they lost. So there's that situation. And then they proposed something else to Harry. Went to his dad and said, okay, in early 2020, they were in Vancouver, in Canada. So in Vancouver Island, they had rented a house, and they thought, what if we move to Canada, still a part of the Commonwealth? We can, still do our business here. We're not getting bombarded by paparazzi. Meghan used to live in Canada. I think she used to live in Toronto. And let's do that. To the point where, he called his dad, and his dad says, I'm going to need it in writing. And he said, last time I put something in writing, it got leaked. Because again, maybe it's not Prince Charles leaking it, but it's someone in their communications office. Maybe it's not Prince William leaking it, but it's someone in his communications office that are behind it that know. And that's the sad thing, is the business, as you guys said, put themselves ahead of the family. And I understand that that's something that has allowed the monarchy and the crown to survive all these years. But at what point do you say, is it worth it to leave all these human bodies, for lack of a better, metaphor, behind? Is it worth it to leave all these family members kind of loveless and alone and sad. I mean, again, you have Princess Margaret, Prince Charles, you have Elizabeth's uncle. You have so many people throughout the crown who now have experienced this kind of, scrutiny on their relationships and not able to pick their own mates. Seems a little ridiculous. And even if it's not ridiculous, it's not working. Even if you think that's not ridiculous, it's not working. So when do you say certain aspects of this institution aren't working anymore? When are we going to update them? Because I think people, for the most part, are open-minded and would be okay with updating some of this stuff. So when he goes to his dad says, I put in writing, and Harry's like, it got leaked last time. So he puts it in writing, and he even made sure to say, you get us in Canada and you get us for free. So we want to remove ourselves from the purse strings of the royal monarchy. Okay. We want to pay for it ourselves. And for people that say they could never, they could. Look what Busy just said. They made all this money off Netflix. Now, granted, they probably wouldn't even have had to do, if they would have parted, if they would have done this, they wouldn't have had to do like a docu-series outing anything going on in the royal family. I think just Meghan and Harry themselves sell. Look at all the newspapers that have sold and made so much money off them. They can make money off themselves, and they wouldn't have to sell out the royal family to do it. They would have made the money on their own. They're more than capable, being two of the most recognizable figures in the world. So he says, you would get us, but for free. Okay. And we'll still do all the work. We'll still represent, the crown in that way. We'll still be a voice, for the queen. We'll still do all of our engagements, things, but we don't want any money for it. Okay. We'll do our own money, which will remove the public interest aspect. So now, since the public's not funding us, what interest would they have? They can't use that argument anymore. So no money from the public for supporting them. And Harry also said if it wasn't going to work, that they would relinquish their Sussex titles. And again, that was leaked. And when they finally went into discussions with the family about what was going to happen in early 2020, what the fate of Meghan and Harry would be in the monarchy, they waited until Meghan left, and then they scheduled a meeting. They were supposed to meet with the Queen, according to them, and they flew there. And while they were in transit, they get a text saying, the Queen's busy. She can't meet with you. And then the Queen tells her grandson, Harry, that, yeah, apparently I'm busy all week. So somewhere that got intercepted, or they're like, no. And again, the Queen is kind of, her schedule gets filled up, and it's not her choice necessarily what she's, she kind of loses her freedom of choice with that role and that title and her responsibility. So they go, Meghan leaves, and Harry, they schedule, all of a sudden the family wants to meet. So Harry goes to meet, and they gave a couple options, or they gave, I think, 5 options, but he said only 2 were really, what they were offering. Because what Harry offered them back, like countered, they weren't open to that. They weren't open to them having freedom from the purse strings and them being out there kind of doing their own thing. It was either you're all in or you're all out. And so ultimately they had to be all out. And then the media takes it and twists it as if they had never spoken to the senior or senior royals about this, and they had. And it's just, again, it's this press media monster that's speaking for these individuals. And it's too bad, because without them, I'm sure that Prince William and Prince Charles, without the pressure of the institution, would say, no, they talked to us. And we've talked for quite a few years about where Harry and Meghan are going to stand. I mean, Harry and Meghan had been complaining about the treatment they had been receiving and not getting help. And that was known. So it's not like they just made this up one day. And they were willing to still, do some royal duties without public payment. And that still wasn't good enough for them. So then they were on Vancouver Island. It was working for a little bit until it wasn't working. And COVID was just being talked about. I think, in North America, and people found out where they were, and they started getting, again, stalked by paparazzi. And that's when they knew they had to get out before Canada went on lockdown for COVID. And so Tyler Perry, of all people, who had reached out to Meghan, he didn't know her, but he reached out to her because, again, she's a, a recognizable face in the world. And when she was getting married and all that stuff was coming out about her dad and losing the relationship with her dad and him selling stories to the press, allegedly, he just reached out and wanted the best for her and looked at her, according to him, just like a human being. What would that be like for anybody to lose their dad in that process, have to give up everything? And he's like, if you ever need anything. And she contacted him and talked to him years later. And he said, go to my house, stay there as long as you want. I'll get you there safely. I mean, I think people forget that. And maybe, I don't know if it's just, I don't know why people are, but Meghan Markle's existence in this family was something that a lot of people looked at as progress. Seeing a person of color represented in this very white monarchy was progress to so many people and gave people hope. And it was kind of, an inspirational story to, again, see these young children of color like, oh my gosh, someone who looks like me, because we know that representation is so important. And seeing yourself represented in every facet of life is progress. And that gives people hope. And so Tyler Perry was probably one of those people who was like, this is an amazing little story here, and just offered up his home, and they stayed there, and they stayed, I think, a year, and through COVID. And it wasn't until months in that, the paparazzi did find them. And even Tyler Perry, who's, he lives by big celebrities. He's a big celebrity. And he said that, he had never seen, and the people that lived by him had never seen the kind of paparazzi attacks that Meghan and Harry were getting once they found out that they were staying at one of Tyler Perry's homes in California. So they were cutting the fence, they were sending in drones and helicopters. And it's so sad because it's, 2020, at that time, 2020. And it's harkening back to the 90s when we saw this same kind of thing with Diana, where she couldn't take her sons on a vacation and she had to plead with paparazzi, please, as a mother, like, can you just respect that I just want to be with my sons right now? Can we just have this moment? Because we're always in the public eye and we're skiing right now. And we just want a moment. You'd see her crying. You see her holding a tennis racket up to protect herself. You see these men lunging at her with such aggression and just to get the story, because it's money. And, it's always follow the money. And they were going to make so much money that they stopped looking at her as a human being. They stopped looking at her kids as a human being, and they just looked at them as a paycheck. And so they were willing to do anything to the point where it ultimately ended in Diana's death by being chased down, by paparazzi and a horrible car accident. So ultimately, that's the story they wanted to share. They wanted to share that Meghan isn't this. This is a tale that's been told about women for so long, you guys. And I don't understand why we're buying into it again. Well, we're buying into this one woman, this one driven, smart woman can come in and ruin a monarchy because that was her goal. The misogyny of it all, the fact that they are going to blame this. This is an institution that we've seen. There's been cracks for a long time. There are things that have not worked. The relationship dynamic alone is a pattern we have seen, whether it was Prince Charles and Diana, horrible marriage because he didn't want to marry her. Whether we see Margaret, she didn't get to marry the guy that she loved and she suffered because of it. Whether we see the person who was supposed to be the king in place of Queen Elizabeth's dad, her uncle, that similar situation. So it's become a pattern. It's become very cyclical, that these relationships and the institution's over involvement in who each royal family member marries is probably something that needs to be updated, in my opinion. All you have to do is look at the pictures and video. He looks at her with such love, and he wanted to protect him. But again, to buy this myth that Meghan Markle is somehow this evil, diabolical woman who is feeding chickens and having babies with the man she loves and just doesn't want people throwing racial slurs and calling her horrible names and putting, just harassing her. Oh, what a horrible woman is what it's crazy to me. It's crazy, but we've seen this happen so many times to women in the media is they want to villainize the woman. And of course, Harry, if he wasn't swayed by this horrible vixen, this divorcee Hollywood actress slut, that's what they want you to believe, that she's just this slooty sloot that went and sought him out to ruin the world. And that's, she's this evil bitch, because that's easier to believe. And that's the story they want to push more than maybe the institution. Maybe it's not needed anymore. Maybe it's a little too antiquated. Maybe it needs to update. Maybe the people don't need the monarchy. Maybe there's changes that need to be made. Maybe they're not as popular as they think they are. So it's easier to just, this is just so classic. It's easier to, we see this happen in American politics. It's easier to blame poor people for our economy than it is to blame corporate welfare, than it is to blame the rich, it's just easier to go, it's all these people on social programs, because it's easier to kick down than to actually have to attack and question the institution, which seems to be the fear of the institution, because it needs that popular public vote or view, I should say. And I mean, the fact that she's getting more hate than him should tell you everything you need to know about this story. And it saddens me because I see so many women pushing this narrative. Meghan's not the villain. Kate Middleton's not the villain. Diana wasn't the villain. Queen Elizabeth wasn't the villain. The antiquated institution, the misogyny, and the racism that keeps this institution alive is the villain, or the things that need to be changed. The fact that they're going to protect a pedophile before they protect a woman of color in their family should tell you everything you need to know about what's going on. Again, show me where Meghan Markle has done anything worse than Prince Charles, Prince Philip, Prince Andrew, Prince William. Where? Because she said she stayed with her mom when she really stayed with her dad a little longer. Because she spoke up against Me Too and women's rights. Because she was married before. Because she was an actress. Because she had vested interest or an interest in the royal family, some people say. It's just, she's not the villain and she's not evil. And I think that this documentary kind of opened our eyes to, she was able to show us who she was even as a kid, but even as, what they were willing to do, the institution was willing to do, is put out these stories about her being a bully while she's openly out there fighting the Daily Mail about being bullied and having her personal letter to her father exposed for people to make money off of and scrutinize her over. A daughter pleads to her father, like, I want to fix this. I love you, but I'm so disappointed in you. And this was taken, and she's being bullied all over the internet. People are sending, death threats very openly. And we don't know if it's like these bots that we now know that we have in social media, these negative bots with campaigns. We even see it with the Real Housewives in the United States. They pay for these businesses to basically slander and slam and have smear campaigns against people they don't like, so that they're not the ones that are getting smeared in the press. Thank you, DGF. Appreciate you. Yeah, his sister suing her for defamation. Well, good luck, because in defamation, we know you have to prove that there's malice, that Meghan Markle on purpose was trying to make Samantha look bad, when all we ever saw in the press was Samantha trying to make Meghan look bad and say, hey, I didn't have that much of a relationship with you. I mean, Samantha's own children don't talk to her. I mean, it's so crazy to me that people don't see that. Samantha Markle's out there selling stories. Is Meghan Markle? At that time, was she selling stories? I mean, her children are siding. Her own daughter is siding with Meghan and looking at her as more of a motherly, sisterly figure. So, yeah, nobody should get death threats. The press criticized Meghan for expensive clothes, renovations, etc. But these are things other royals did. Yeah. And they showed the comparisons. She would cradle her baby bump a certain way. She was doing too much. And what's her deal? And oh my God. But then Kate Middleton does it. And oh, look at, she's so protective. And then that also has to bring up the question of the way a woman of color's behavior is judged by the media versus a white woman. And we know that this media is very, very whitewashed. Very, very whitewashed. So just that alone and the different things and how, from this documentary, I think you could really tell how much she wanted to fit in with this family. She wanted to make it work. It didn't benefit her to not make it work. It just didn't. No human could have this much hate spewed at them and just be like, eh. No, of course she wanted to, work with the family she married into. Of course she wanted that. Of course she wanted her, kids to have their cousins near them and all these things. But unfortunately, this institution is allowing this media monster to do what it does. And it causes so much pain and so much suffering in this family to the point of killing people. Beth G says, I think this is bigger than them. We're talking about a family institution that literally rules a country and has hundreds. Exactly. And that's the thing. It is bigger than them. And it is bigger than anything. At this point, what Harry knew of William previously of like, Harry talks about how they had conversations. They're never going to have the press office or the communications office or an office like their dad. They're going to be different. But then, with that comes time and age. And William sees that in order to, his birthright is to become the next king. And in order for that to happen, he's got to follow the rules. He has to go along with these steps that they probably, according to Harry, once thought they were going to change. But it's not changing, unfortunately. So look at all the stuff that went on with Prince Charles back. Exactly. I mean, seriously. And that was all over the tabloids. I mean, Prince Charles had tapes leaked where he said he wanted to live in Camilla's underpants. But now Camilla is just this well-respected woman. I mean, they slut-shamed her for years, but now they moved on to shaming Meghan Markle instead. And I don't even think Camilla should have been slut-shamed. Ultimately, it was Prince Charles that decided to step out on his marriage. She stepped out on her marriage too, but he stepped away from, that in his marriage to Diana and him being the next king and the standards and stuff. But again, I do have empathy for Prince Charles because I think that had they just let him be with Camilla like he always wanted to be, a lot of this pattern could have just been stopped. I mean, you do have to break patterns. It reminds me a lot of being in addict families and me being from an alcoholic family. It's a lot about protecting the addiction the same way it's about protecting the institution here. Even though it doesn't really work for the family, it's all they've ever known. And that's any kind of shakeup of that is terrifying because it could crumble. So any person that steps in and speaks against the addiction or against the institution is then seen as the problem and must be cut out. They're the cancer. But if anyone can explain to me why a known pedo, even hanging out with a pedo Jeffrey Epstein is still allowed in this family and not shunned. But Meghan Markle is? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, maybe it's time for change. Yeah, Em's been clever her whole life. And Harry likes that about her. They enjoy each other. They're still married. despite all of this pressure, which would have broke most couples, they're still married. So it is really sad. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's, you would hope that it's repairable, especially with the brothers, because having them be the sons of Diana, and Diana having such a warm spot in many of our hearts, and her legacy. But I see so much of Diana in Harry. I see Diana in William too, but he has to unfortunately adhere to the institution the same way Charles has to, but I see a lot of Diana in Harry, and it's quite beautiful to see him able to recognize the patterns and able to protect his family, because he couldn't protect his mom. He was a kid, and that's something I'm sure he lives with as well. So just from like a human standpoint, an emotional standpoint, I thought the docu-series showcased that well, and hearing from Harry. And I enjoy Harry. And I think Harry had a great redemption in a time when he could have just ended up being a shitty, spoiled royal kid. He chose to, do other things and, travel to Africa and join the army and get involved in causes and have his life be of more purpose than just being a rich, spoiled royal who wants to party and is never going to be king anyway. So he's like, whatever. And now he's advocating for his family, which is like the most beautiful thing you can do, I think, as a man or a woman. Can you imagine if Will and Kate decided to leave the royal family, move to the US? I bet the press would leave HL. Yeah, I don't think that will ever happen, obviously. But yeah, Quarantine says Meghan Markle's mother gave her the same advice that Mariah Carey's mother gave her about being a Black woman. There was no conversation. Pepe says, I see the Brits with the faux outrage in the chat against Meghan are all of a sudden very quiet when the question is posed, is Meghan worse than a proven pedo? Interesting. I mean, this is just critical thinking. This is just me looking at it with the critical eye being, okay, we have Meghan Markle who marries into this family and looks great. From look standards alone, it's like, wow, we're seeing progress. Representation is happening. A woman of color in the royal family hasn't happened. And this, representing the Commonwealth of, more obviously to showcase and the diverse faces that exist, and like you saw in this documentary, there was like young people being like, oh my gosh, there's like someone who looks like me in the royal family. There's diversity in the royal family. That's amazing. And these two people just fell in love, and then popularity rises, and then this royal Rhoda of media monster decides to start chipping away and chipping away and chipping away what it appears at Meghan Markle, and she can't do anything right, and she's scrutinized to the point of Diana scrutiny and followed to the point of Diana, how she was. And yet we have men in this family who have done despicable things. Prince Andrew alone, that interview he did when people were calling him out on the Jeffrey Epstein friend, they were like a best friends. He's on that plane. He's been accused of SA. He's had, someone said in the chat, a woman won against him. There are pictures up with him and a teenager. I mean, when I look at that and think, well, why the hell are they mad at her? When they got bigger problems. You have bigger problems when you got pedophiles in your family than Meghan Markle. And you would think they want to separate themselves from that rather than separate themselves from Meghan and Harry, who gave, according to them, lots of options for how they could exist in this family and still serve the Queen. But they weren't allowed to. But this guy, it took him a while to get his royal duties taken away, and he got to do shitty interviews where he looked even more pedo. And he's still going to church, seen with the royal family. I mean, it's horrible that it has to be that way, but it has to be like, well, what did this woman do that could be as bad as some of these men? Whether with their infidelity, their own divorces, their own embarrassment to the crown, and Prince Andrew's pedo-ness. Why is Meghan Markle public enemy number one? Why is Prince Harry, who arguably probably right now has the most healthy relationship being scrutinized so much? When he's advocating for mental health and protection of his family, and he's speaking up, and they're still doing multiple charities and working for multiple organizations and things. If they were so shitty, wouldn't they just be off not doing any of that? Not caring about these organizations and charities? I don't know. Something to think about. Yeah, and I'm sure he still gets paid too, Tammy. And if I was part of the, people that my money was going to, that I'd want to see. I'd want to see if he was in fact getting paid for that. So, there's a secret child? No way. I don't know nothing about that. Toria, I don't know about that. But I mean, that was pretty disgraceful for a long time, the Camilla and Prince Charles stuff. So, yeah, the treatment of Meghan just illustrates how much misogyny and racism is there, sadly, and how much they don't want to admit it. So then you have the press asking white William and white Charles, who have the ultimate privilege and money and clout and position, you guys racist? No, not at all. I don't know. I've never experienced racism. And you're like, well, yeah, of course you haven't. Why don't you ask the only person of color in your family? She's right there. And when you ask her, she says there's racism going on. So I'm going to probably believe her over the rich white guys in the family who have never experienced racism. I'm probably just going to listen to her. I think Will couldn't handle the idea of Meghan and Harry stealing the spotlight from him. Even though he's the future king, his ego was bruised seeing how much they were loved. I mean, his dad, Charles, did have an ego issue with how much Diana was loved, and Diana spoke about it in interviews. Was like, no, I don't like being popular. I don't like being this well-liked by the public because it comes at a cost, and the cost is jealousy from my husband. And my husband, it hurts my marriage because Charles's ego was the same. So you guys have been fantastic. We've been on here for over 2 hours. We had the discussion. I appreciate those of you that were most of you were just, so insightful. And even when you disagreed, you were very respectful. Some of you, not so much. But that's okay. My mods did a wonderful job. Shout out to my mods. Thank you everyone for the super chats and the support. Tammy R says, thanks for covering this today. This is a subject I'm passionate about. I love Princess Diana. Me too. I love, obviously watching documentaries about the royals and the monarchy and things like that, and just furthering my understanding with my own opinion. And like we said in the beginning, Busy and I, by no means, Mims, we're not royal historians. We're Americans looking at this, but this is a show that was on, and this is all in our, being presented to us as well. And this is what we think when we look at it. So feel free to leave your comments after this video post. I'd love to hear from you guys and what you think. I'm sure I'll get some like, you're an idiot. And maybe you could put it a little better. But I don't think this is the last time we'll be covering this royal stuff and news about this, because it interests me a lot, and I would like to do more videos about this and invite more people on. Again, if you are someone who lives in the UK and you'd like to be part of a future panel, hit me up in the DMs on Instagram, and maybe we can make that happen. And maybe we'll reach out to our friend TV Talks with Tom over on his channel where he covers Big Brother, and maybe he'll want to be on the panel and he can give us, firsthand experience of actually living in the UK. That would be great to have the perspective of people actually in the UK. Today was just our first little dive into it, and I wanted to bring Busy Blue up because I always love getting his opinion, and oftentimes his opinion is not the same as mine and his perspective. He's obviously going to come with his own stuff and from his own life and experiences. I'm going to come with mine. I'm so happy that Mims joins. Hopefully we'll get Mims again because he provides fantastic insights. Thank you, Maintenance Chick. I appreciate that. You guys have been so fantastic. I see similarities with what happened with Taylor and Big. There's lots of things. I always will come to question when there's a huge hate campaign against a woman. I'm just like, let me investigate a little more on that, because we've seen that happen so much throughout time. And I think probably many women in the chat have had their own experience of being villainized for merely speaking up, having an opinion, being strong, succeeding, breathing, not smiling, all that stuff, you know. So again, thank you guys so much. Please comment after. Shout out to my mods. You guys did a fantastic job, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and until then, remember to enjoy yourself, because it's later than you think. Bye.
If you like what you see.